Hello, everybody, and welcome to the January 30th, 2025 meeting of the Finance Committee at the Town Hall Annex. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until March 31st, 2025. This meeting of the Chatham Finance Committee is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1 area code 508-945-4410, conference ID 971-891-746 #, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, which is Xfinity Channel 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. If anyone is recording this meeting, please notify the chairman. I see none. Okay, let's see who's here. Roll call. Tommy Doan.
Here.
Barbara Madison.
Here.
John Papalardo. Joanne Sprague.
Here.
Andy Young is here. Kristen Andrus.
Here.
Tracy Shields.
Here.
Eric Whiteley.
Here.
And Stephen Daniel, who may end up joining us a little bit later. Okay, great. We can commence. Carrie, once again, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're going to be going over the FY 2026 proposed budget for the Public Works Department and the Water Department. The Public Works and Facilities budget is presented at $7,707,334 for FY 2026, an increase of $368,475 or 5.2 over the current fiscal year. The Highway Division budget is at $952,103. The Snow and Ice Division is level funded for FY 2026 with a budget of $95,000. The Street Lighting Division is level funded for FY 2026 with a budget of $22,500. The FY 2026 Transfer Station Division budget is at $1,912,948. The Fuel Depot Division is level funded for FY 2026 with a budget of $235,000. The FY 2026 Facilities Division budget is at $1,668,770. The FY 2026 Project and Operations Admin Division is at $313,228. The FY 2026 Sewer Division budget is at $1,749,290. The FY 2026 Cemetery Division budget is at $61,872. The FY 2026 Parks and Grounds Division budget is at $696,622. They have some capital requests that under the 2026 capital plan for the amounts ranging between $10,000 and $250,000. Public Works requests are $60,000 for facility safety equipment upgrade, $10,000 for water main replacement. The Highway Division requests are $20,000 for annual road maintenance, $5,000 for bike trail maintenance, $10,000 for emergency road repairs, $200,000 for road resurfacing, $100,000 for sidewalk construction, $95,000 for there's a typo, it's supposed to be a 2015 one-ton truck, plow and sander, and replace a 2005 backhoe for $160,000. Project operations and admin requests are $200,000 for property management building maintenance projects. Municipal building requests are $250,000 for ADA improvements for all buildings, $32,650 for Bassett House energy conservation measures, $50,000 for DPW building upgrade study, $150,000 for DPW fuel depot fire suppression upgrade, and $50,000 for PD annex boilers. It's actually just the annex boilers. Transfer station requests are $175,000 for transfer station trash truck, and cemetery department requests are $10,000 for cleaning of headstones and $15,000 for fence repair and vegetation removal. And then we have the water operating budget, which is presented for FY 2026 for $5,447,828, an increase of $727,810, or 15.42% over the FY 2025 budget. The largest portion of this budget is due to debt service, which has risen by $622,972, for a total of $2,538,827. This includes $2,047,342 for principal, $441,485 for interest, and $50,000 for short-term interest. And Rob Faley, the DPW director, is here to go over more in detail of the line items for you.
Thank you, Carrie. Rob,
You're welcome.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee members and Carrie. Rob Faley, Director of Public Works. I will run through the DPW budget. So just to give a quick 10,000-foot overview, 7 divisions of the Public Works Department are listed here. This excludes projects and operations administration. Even though they're part of DPW, they're part of the DPW budget, but that's really, Terry Whalen's going to be doing that as part of his presentation. So for this purpose, I'm excluding it from my presentation, although I do make some mention of some of his numbers just to keep it consistent throughout the presentation. It's an overview of our existing staff. 0 staff were added in 2025. We have 2 vacancies in administration. One is somebody who was promoted, another one is a new position that we're using we're kind of combining a bunch of part-time or seasonal help to make another, like an engineering technician type position to help out some project management issues. And we also have a vacancy in highways. You'll see at the bottom, we've requested this year 2 additional staff for the Parks and Grounds Division. That's to bring all of the cemetery maintenance in-house. Currently, we mow the 2 largest cemeteries with contracted staff, Union and Seaside Cemeteries. They're very large. We just don't have the manpower in-house currently to maintain both of those cemeteries. And it's really just mowing. We still do all the other maintenance, but it's the mowing. And so we're requesting 2 additional staff so we can bring all that activity in-house. That's just an overview of DPW equipment. I won't go through in detail unless you want me to, but under the bottom, the water department, the lighter gray color, those are Veolia-owned equipment. It's part of our contract with Veolia that they provide that equipment. So it's not town equipment, but technically town staff or contracted staff do use that equipment. And please interrupt me at any time if you have any questions. I'm happy to pause.
Mr. Chair,
Please go
I
ahead.
was just waiting for that. Thank you. On highways, does the town contract out all of its plowing, or do we do it in-house now?
We do all of it in-house.
How much does that cost us an hour?
Well, it depends on the storm, you know. If it's just something where we're not plowing, we could handle it with a few trucks with
Yeah.
sanders, and we can just spread salt on the road.
Yeah.
If it's plowing, it's an all-hands-on-deck event where we pull staff in from Parks and Grounds, the transfer station, facilities, highways. Everybody contributes to the greater cause. For an hourly cost, I don't have a breakdown, but it's basically every DPW employee, their salary for every hour.
I just wondered how that would contrast as if we had to bring in plowers from outside to hire. to do our
Typically,
plowing.
I've found that it's more expensive. Even if it's less expensive initially, by the time you pay for upgrades and you start phasing out some of your equipment, it winds up being more money in the long run.
Okay, thank you. And just one more question before you leave. On the highways, how much will we be getting from the state this year for our maintenance of our highways?
For Chapter 90 funds?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I did put on the back of your packet, there is the last report I got from Chapter 90, so there is a balance on there. I apologize, I didn't let you know. So I don't know if it shows how much we're getting, but it does show what our balances are. It's on the very back of your packet, the whole entire thing.
I was just wondering, like, every year we get a different amount or the same amount because of our linear footage or mileage?
As it goes by mileage and population, there's a formula that they use. And I know I was at a conference last week and Governor Healy spoke about adding another 50% on top of what they historically have distributed for Chapter 90 funds. So in FY '26, we should see a substantial bump in that.
Oh, okay, that's good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Tommy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ron, could you repeat what you were saying about the cemeteries, please?
So cemetery maintenance falls on our Parks and Grounds division.
Right,
They mow all the cemeteries with the exception of Union and Seaside.
right.
But they do all the other spring and fall cleanups. They repair the fences. They cut vegetation from the fence lines and that kind of stuff. But it's just the mowing of those two cemeteries that we had historically contracted out.
Just those two cemeteries?
Those two, yep.
Thank you.
But in this instance, Tom, for FY 2026, we're talking about bringing on additional staff within Parks and Grounds, taking over all of the cemetery maintenance.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Clear. Barbara?
Yeah, actually, thank you, Mr. Chair. That was my question, too. So the two people that we're bringing on, the only thing they're going to be doing is those two cemeteries?
No, it's just to help out with the additional workload. We'll probably bring a full crew in, maybe of 4 or 5 people to mow those cemeteries to get them done in a single day. But then they're there for other duties as needed.
Okay, and I did just want to give you a shout out. Earlier this year, there was a pothole that I didn't see when I was walking in my morning walk, and I went down, and a friend of mine called you guys, and within one day, that pothole was filled. So thank you.
Good, glad to hear it. Thank you.
Go ahead. Eric?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Rob, on the two positions that you're talking about, and I understand the adding the cemeteries, is there a reason they need to be full-time year-round if it's really for the benefit of the additional mowing that we're doing there, which there's no water, so the mowing in those cemeteries is probably really 6 weeks at the most. So maybe it's more. I shouldn't say it that way, but did you consider maybe part-time for that instead of full-time?
We have. So typically last summer was a pretty wet summer historically, so there wasn't really a down season. We were always hoping for a little bit of a dry August, but we were still mowing starting in early May right through to fall cleanup in the end of October. So we were having, the nature of the job market right now, we're having a tough time trying to bring in summer helpers. Typically, we would bring in like 4. We've had 1 for the past 2 years. I don't know if people don't want to work or they're higher paying jobs out there. There's a lot of good summer employment opportunities, and there's a shortage of workforce on the Cape. So it's been a struggle for us.
Okay, Rob, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. This is just a pie chart to show kind of the breakdown of the DPW budget. The larger slices of the pie are municipal buildings or facilities in the blue. The orange is highways. Green is the transfer station. And in the purple is the sewer department. The rest all falls in much smaller categories, but that makes up the bulk of the DPW budget. So the $7,707,334 budget represents an increase of $368,475, or 5.02%. Again, project administration is part of the DPW budget, but it was separated from municipal buildings last fiscal year, but we still track it in the DPW budget. Personnel increases are $189,198 of that. That's pretty much up to, longevity increases, collective bargaining agreements, cost of living adjustments, things of that nature. And operational increases, we'll get into those details here shortly. So here are the personnel increases. Again, you could see modest increases across the board, and then we get to Parks and Grounds, and that reflects the 2 additional employees that we're requesting for a 27.9% increase in their personnel costs. Terry's part, the project administration, is a slight reduction because there was a long-term employee that retired, and we hired somebody, actually somebody who was one of my administrative people was promoted to his assistant, so that worked out. Operational increases, these are just the line items that we've increased for municipal buildings. $55,000 for gas and heat as costs rise. Operational supplies, $10,000, and $48,300 for buildings, grounds, and maintenance. All other categories have been level funded. Highways for $952,103. We added another $4,000 for street signs. We are requesting, we get requested a lot to install additional stop signs and parking signs and that nature, and we're just reflecting that in our budget just because there's a greater need around Chatham. All the other categories are level funded.
Mr. Chair.
Please go ahead.
Of our buildings, how many don't have generators?
So the fire chief has kind of taken over the emergency generator rollout. I believe we only have one primary building that doesn't have generators.
Which is that?
Is it the community center? I'm not sure.
No, they have a generator.
Say that again?
Anne
not the
says that there's a
community
generator. Maybe Terry knows.
Terry probably does know. Because I know he
Yeah,
works
so
on that.
Terry Whalen, so the community center does have a generator in place. So I think as far as the primary buildings, we have them all covered. We do have some smaller buildings that currently do not have them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. Thanks, Terry. Go ahead, Rob.
Sure. And sewer department, the only increase is of the $1,749,290 is the increase in the contracted services. And that's last July, we signed a 5-year agreement with Veolia, and they've been on board with us, so they have periodic increases every July.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
are we going to get into how the construction at the transfer station is going and where we stand on the budget there of the renovation?
I believe on February 18th, I'll be back. I'll do an update on the transfer station as well as the next phase funding,
Okay, thank you.
as well as any sewer projects as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So the transfer station increase to $1,912,948. CMAS tipping increased by $65,000 to an expected total of $650,000. I say expected because it really depends on the amount of trash that residents throw out.
Thanks for checking, exclamation point. I thought it was paid. It must be a processing issue on Rise's end. Thanks.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, what was that?
It wa-
Whatever it was, I didn't get it. Oh. Oh, okay.
Okay.
So with CMAS tipping, that's where all of our solid waste goes. We just signed a new 5-year contract with them with a very modest increase, and they increase their costs approximately 3 to 4.5% every year. We're still anticipating raising some tipping floor rates, not necessarily sticker rates for residents, but for the commercial haulers, both for construction and demolition debris and for the commercial haulers on the tipping floor. Just because we're seeing more rates, higher costs for us to get rid of that equipment, material, sorry.
Eric? Okay. Barb?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question, Rob. A lot of the plastics, I think, I've been told that we put into our plastic recycling, even if they are from 1 to 7, cannot actually be recycled. Is it still cheaper for the town for us to just throw all of the recyclable, supposedly plastics in our own recycling rather than in the trash?
It is cheaper. It's not much cheaper, but it is cheaper, especially if we continue to separate it. The single stream plastics are almost equivalent to solid waste to get rid of. There's not that much of a market, and it's a perpetual machine. You know, if you try to recycle plastics, you have to add virgin plastics. So you're creating more and more plastics every time you try to recycle it. So, you know, I think the best practice to follow is to try to avoid plastics at all costs, you know.
We try.
But yeah, the market's drying up for that, so it's really difficult and expensive to get rid of plastics. We search for the best areas to locate to get the most benefit. So like our tin and aluminum, we can get up to 18 cents a pound, depending where we take it. Cardboard and newspaper, we can actually make money at also. Everything else it costs us to get rid of, even glass. Just the market's not out there.
Any idea if we're ever going to be able to recycle styrofoam?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good one.
Thanks, Rob.
You're welcome.
Did you want to speak? No? Go ahead, Eric.
So my question's almost in line, and you may have answered it. I was going to ask if the $350,000 for the recyclable material removal that you're budgeting for, you know, what the breakdown was at relative to the tipping costs. And so I think you've generally said that some materials we would be better off if they were just in the stream going to CMAS rather than recyclable.
Yeah, you know, I at least when it goes to CMAS, it's being burned and reused for energy. Otherwise, it may be going to a landfill. So I look at the sustainability piece of that. You know, maybe it's going towards it's getting a second use. May not be as a plastic, but it's being used for energy. So there's a little bit of a benefit there.
So has there ever been any thought of maybe retraining us all in the public about what should be going into which stream? And, you know, if you're talking about the cardboard, the newspaper, the tin, whatever else you said that there's either some value for or getting rid of it, I mean, should we be promoting, you know, sending the plastic that Barbara's talking about and some of the other things, you know, through a different pathway rather than paying more to get rid of it?
I think that's going to be a big objective if we get funded for the recycling area for next year. You know, we'll see how that goes, but I think, you know, some more clearer signage and maybe a public campaign to really inform residents. It's definitely on the table.
Oh,
Go ahead, Tommy.
Thank you, Andy. Ron, do you remember when the last tipping increase for CMAS was?
For CMAS, every year they increase.
Every year. Is it generally this amount every year? Increase?
The increase is it's between 3% and 4.5% typically.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Joanne.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm pretty well trained with recycling, and it's very little annoying and disappointing to go to put my garbage in and have a big truck come in and dump everything, not bagged, not anything, but cardboard, plastics, everything, a whole pickup truck full of it. So I don't know what we do about that, but it's like you're swimming against the tide when you're trying to go down and separate cardboard, plastic, bottles, and all of that. And you begin to think, what's the use? That's a lot of trouble for some of us. Anyway.
It is the responsible thing to do, and I think that kind of drives the discussion of why we need to increase our tipping rates.
All right.
It may encourage more people to recycle.
Okay, Kristen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as a follow-up to the tipping rates, how far behind are we lagging on our commercial, what we charge our commercial haulers to what we're paying to get rid of? I assume they're still single stream. Anyway, thank you.
So we recently had a rate change, and I think we're about $6 per ton to the negative. We're losing money. Every ton that's delivered to Chatham Transfer Station, we're losing money.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Next, Parks and Grounds, $696,622. Everything is level funded in that department. Cemeteries, so we're removing $70,000 out of the cemetery department, and that's because that's what the contracted mowers typically made in a year. So by converting that to salary, it's not going to be as big of a hit when we hire 2 additional employees. We'll save that $70,000. It'll go towards that. I think it was 143 for those 2 positions. So that'll help. Snow and ice, street lighting, central fuel depot, all no changes, all level funded. And I just carried Terry's number on here, 313,228, and he'll present that when I'm finished. I jumped ahead and put the water department slide in here. There's really not a whole lot of discussion from my perspective. There is some slight increases when it comes to salary, whether it's in-house staff. The water fund expenses is part of, I think that's Veolia's, is that carried? Is Veolia's carried under the water fund expenses, or is that in a different line?
The Veolia contract is under the water fund expenses, yes.
Okay, so that covers part of their increase as well?
Yep.
And the biggest driver of the increase is the debt service. So that's why it shows a 15.42% increase. But I'll pause here if you want to ask any questions on the water budget.
I will, I think, the next logical question is, are we entertaining any sort of rate increase to help cover these increases?
Yes.
You knew it was coming. Yeah.
So Rob and I are currently working with a company called Waterworth and getting the rates worked on. And Rob will be presenting them to the Water and Sewer Committee.
We'll
And
go to
then
the
we'll
Water
have
and
to
Sewer
go to the
Advisory
Select
Committee
Board.
first.
But they are in the works because there is a need to raise the rates to cover the budget.
Okay. All right.
Primarily to cover the debt service from all the water projects. We just, we just finished wells 10 and 11. We're under construction with wells 5 and 8, and all of those bills are coming due. So I'm sure there'll be future water projects coming up too.
And I assume the large filter project on Trainfield Road is coming along?
It is. Yeah, the foundation is in. They've started the masonry block walls up out of the ground. They're looking to have the GAC, the granular activated carbon vessels, installed in March, and then they'll put the roof on, and then construction will continue. So it's moving along nicely.
All right. Terrific. Thank you. Welcome, Steve and Daniel. Tommy, go ahead.
When do you expect that building to be in use?
I don't remember exactly what the schedule shows, but it wouldn't be until the latter part of this year,
This year? Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
well after summer.
Joanne?
Yes, when we look at the water department budget, it looks, in my opinion, that should be at the top of our list for the town as far as budgeting and capital expenditure and debt, if there is any. That should be prioritized because, again, without pure water and without enough of it, the rest of everything we have in town pales in significance. And what part of the budget or what part of the department is concerned with new wells? And how much water we require a day? How much water will we require according to our average population expectations? And what are we doing about that? Because it's not a short-term look ahead. It should be, it should be, we should be looking at it in the short term, not the long term. So what are we thinking and doing about that? Or what are you thinking as a department chief?
So we did look at additional wells. I guess they were studied a number of years ago. There are 2 other well locations we could explore. Based on the levels of iron and manganese and the how much production we can get out of those wells, the juice may not be worth the squeeze, so to speak. We would put a lot of money to invest to develop those 2 wells, and we may not get a lot of return back from those. So I think we have to look at making sure the quality of the water coming out of our existing wells is good, looking for efficiencies in some of the piping. Maybe some pipe sizes can be increased, potentially storage. The problem is with the if we were to increase our storage, there's a 1.25 million gallon tank and a 1.35 million gallon tank. The usage is so great in the summertime when irrigation systems come online that it depletes that so much, so quickly, that all of our wells come online and they're pumping all day to try to replenish that water that's lost. So even if we had maybe another storage tank, it may take the curse off a little bit, but it's not really a long-term solution. And we're still pushing conservation. We're still pushing for people to install private wells if they are insisting on irrigating their lawns. That's the best way. If we can get more irrigation systems off of town water, which, we pump it, we store it, we treat it, and then it gets watered onto somebody's lawn and runs down the gutter half the time. So I think we have to really work on our education and really promote, and I think raising the water rates will help this, promote people not irrigating their lawns with treated water.
Yeah, thank you. And I just think it's important that we don't come to a point where we have to tell the town that we're in trouble immediately. And I think we should put a heavier emphasis on what the future brings. How are we going to deal with water and population? But thank you.
Tom, just a quick question. Now that we require separate metering for irrigation systems on the town water, do we actually have a real count of how much water is being used for irrigation?
We don't, because we're still working on identifying those properties. There are many properties that still irrigate and they only have a single meter. Okay. So we are about 9 months into it. We are waiting for this summer when we finally have a really good count. If we see people that are spiking. So before we used to have to drive around and to get the meter readings and everything, it was a big laborious process. Now we can get like up to 4,000 meter readings in a single day. Yeah. So we can keep track. We're identifying leaks a lot quicker. People who may be away and they've got a running toilet or something, we can identify that, hey, they're using a lot of water, a lot more than they normally do, and the house isn't even occupied. So we can reach out to them and try to shut their water off and have a conversation with them. So I think we're getting there. We're not quite there yet. I think this summer would be a really good tell. Of course, last summer, we were going to rely on our contracted operators to do this, and we were in a transition between Weston and Sampson and Veolia. So just the timing didn't work out, and I'm hopeful this summer we'll be able to really narrow down maybe those last 100 or 200 people that need irrigation meters that don't have one.
That would be a really interesting data point, particularly if we're talking about any changes in water rates, and particularly those that are used for irrigation. Right.
So regardless of a drought status, I've heard other Cape Cod communities, when we file a permit with DEP to pull water out of the aquifer, they're being told at the state level, you can only irrigate maybe twice a week. Right. So the state's putting restrictions on our ability to draw water out of the aquifer. And I think we're going to be there probably within the next 2 years.
Right. Oh, boy. Tommy? Oh, Kristen, please.
Thank you. Couple of things. I would say, I just want to make a plug for Cape Cod lawns. I know that a lot of people have come to just love having lush turf lawns, but here on Cape Cod, where we've got sandy soils, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a Cape Cod lawn. I'm not ashamed to say I've been here enough decades to remember and always know what a Cape Cod lawn is, but folks that have moved here from elsewhere may not know that. It's perfectly acceptable to have a non-irrigated lawn. So just a plug for Cape Cod lawn and conserving water. And then secondly, just as an anecdotal thing, I'm just curious, has water pressure been reduced? I've just noticed at home, it may be psychological, but knowing that we've had some water issues and that we've been in drought, but it just seems like water pressure seems to be lower in my West Chatham abode.
We did not intentionally lower water pressure. I know we've had a couple of breaks recently, especially with sewer construction. The contractors broke open the sewer main. Maybe that affected pressure to some degree. It's really hard to say. But, you know, we're in that time of year where water levels are at their lowest and the ground's frozen, so we're not seeing that recharge yet that we normally see. So hopefully we'll get some milder weather and some nice spring rains to really replenish the aquifer.
Barbara?
Well, that's a scary thought. Do you have the ability to lower water pressure?
We probably can, but I don't know if we can do it, you know, townwide at, you know, as a whole. You know, we could do it in areas. You know, there are APWA standards that we have to provide pressure at a certain level.
Yeah. That's right. They just crank the curb stop shut and you don't have any water pressure. All right. Okay, please, Rob, go ahead.
Thank you. So that concludes the operational piece, and I'll jump into capital now. If you're okay with that.
Yeah.
So cleaning of headstones, this is an annual request. It's part of our perpetual care. Last year, I know the cemetery department got CPC funding to clean a number of headstones. They've requested it again this year. They've gotten initial approval for that. So, but regardless of whether we get CPC approval, this is something that just goes towards our perpetual care. We were able to clean, I want to say, close to 135 headstones last year. Clean, repair, straighten, whatever. This is one that had a couple of cracks in it that were put back together and it was cleaned. Mostly in Seaside, but some of it spilled over to Union Cemetery. I encourage you to take a walk through the cemeteries. They're really beautiful, and these white gleaming headstones really stand out at you.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Rob, having spent a fair bit of time in the graveyards in the last couple of years, does the town have a policy on bushes that probably started about this big and are now the size of a single-car garage, obscuring the tombstones that are embedded in them?
People aren't supposed to plant anything in the cemeteries. I know it's happened over the years. If they're maintained, you know, you can kind of look the other way, but, you know, like you said, a lot of them have just gone out of control.
Right.
We've been spending a lot of time in Union Cemetery cutting some overgrowth. The dingo that you supported last year with the stump grinder, we've been grinding the stumps out. So,
good.
And I've got a picture in here in a little bit that kind of shows that. So,
Okay, terrific, thank you.
okay. Next is just another annual request, $10,000 for water main service replacements. You know, every time we get in there and somebody, especially if somebody replaces their private service line, we like to do the public side at the same time. We recently submitted to DEP our lead service line inventory. So there are, I think, I forgot the last count, was around 12 or 1,300 service lines that we could not confirm what that material was. I don't think any of them are lead, but they could be unlined steel or copper or something that would leach into the water, into the drinking water for residences. So we are working with DEP. Once we hear back from them, they'll give us a game plan. Typically, it's like over a 10-year period, we have to have a game plan to replace all of those. So this number this year will probably be the last year you see it this low. It'll probably be a larger, much larger capital request going forward.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Rob, what are they lined with, the pipes?
Well, they're unlined, so they have, it's just like a steel pipe that, or a lead pipe that you would be picking up contaminants from the water going through the pipe, so.
So none of these things are plastics and all this stuff that's been burning out in California, right?
Yeah, no, well, since in the last 40, 50 years, we've been using plastic, and, that's a great material. So that's what we try to install nowadays.
Of
Yikes.
the more than 1,000 that we can't determine what they are, is it you've been unable to examine the pipe, or you're not getting a response from the homeowner, or?
Our records they go back 100 years. They're not always clear. It's not always documented what material was used. And that's what DEP will give us some direction, and a lot of it may be we just dig a hole or get into the property owner's house and make an observation. We sent out surveys. Survey response was overwhelmingly positive, but we still have, over 1,000 that we can't confirm yet.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Tracy.
Thank you. Just for the public and maybe a board member, how do you suggest somebody determine that if their property is undetermined, how does the property owner figure out what it is?
So we sent out guidelines in the last couple of water bills, and maybe if you haven't received a water bill recently, you didn't get one, but, so it has, how to identify what type of pipe you have coming into your house. And if we give you a tool, like you can use a magnet to test it, you can scratch it, and if it's shiny, then it's in some other material. So there are ways, but a lot of them, the meter or there's insulation and it's so tight to the foundation, you may not even be able to tell from inside your basement. You may have to, somebody would have to dig a hole in your yard to really be able to determine that. So that's what our next step is once we get a response from DEP. We've been back and forth with DEP a little bit. They had some clarifications and some just administrative things we needed to correct. But we are good with them. We're in the waiting game now to have them respond. You figure every community in Massachusetts had the same deadline to submit, so I'm sure they're overwhelmed with it.
Tommy?
Thank you, Andy. How did the survey go that you sent out for people to identify there?
Very well. I don't know the numbers offhand, but it was well over 1,000 respondents.
Okay.
I think it was closer to 1,500, which is, if we have 7,000 customers,
Yeah.
that's not a bad return.
No? Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Go ahead.
Again, another annual request, $5,000 for bike path maintenance. Doesn't cover labor, it just covers materials, things like, fence posts and railing and things like that we need to replace. Sometimes it comes into like line striping or just repairs that come up. So this is just an annual request for $5,000. Here is the $15,000, again, another annual request. You can see in the bottom left picture, there's I don't know if you can really, they don't come out very well. There's a couple of blue flags there. There were trees and bushes there not that long ago, so we cut those down. We ground the stumps. Grass hasn't come back yet. It's a good time of year because it doesn't look like there's that much disturbance to the cemetery. And in the spring, we'll throw some grass seed down and get grass to reestablish. But it's, that was an overgrown area just a few months ago. And then again, just some of the fence repairs we do. You see the fence line is really clear of vegetation, and there's a couple of shinier rails in there that we replaced recently. But it really goes towards, our parks and grounds staff. They can do all this work in-house, but occasionally we have to hire a tree company to come in for some hazard branches that we're not capable of cutting, or we have to buy fencing materials to support the fence line. Emergency road repairs, again, another annual request, something that's not in our normal budget, but things do come up. On the left is a picture of Battlefield Landing. We were trying to prevent we put in a few French drains. We were trying to prevent water from going down and washing out residents' steps, who they are kind enough to let the public onto their property, and feel like the least we could do to try to prevent those steps from washing out as frequently as they do. We still have more work to do out there, but it's just some of these little things that come up that you don't really have room in your budget for, and you have to buy some material to help appease, some of the issues we see going on. On the right-hand picture is just a curb. Property owner's driveway was getting flooded out from water from our road, so we put a small berm at their driveway entrance and tied that back into a catch basin. So again, all these little material costs add up, so it just helps offset some of our budget. And this, probably going forward, could just be part of the budget. I don't know why we always carry it as capital, but I guess that's the way we've always done it. Not that that's the right way, but maybe we'll have to rethink things going forward. This is the transfer station's trash truck. $175,000. It has over 100,000 miles on it. It has frequent breakdowns. This truck goes all over town, picks up trash in 135 barrels several times a week. In the summertime, we have more barrels, 155 barrels, and it does a daily trip. On busy summer weekends or holidays, it sometimes does that trip twice a day in some of the main areas, so it's very heavily used. It does break down frequently. It seems like commercial mechanics are difficult to come by, or there's a lot more competition for their services, so when the truck is down, it's down for longer periods of time. During those times, our crew has to go out with a 1-ton dump truck, and they have to make several trips, and they have to lift the garbage up over the back of the bed of the truck, possibly inflicting shoulder injuries and things of that nature. So we really would like to have a reliable compactor trash truck to make those daily trips.
Andy?
Yes.
Carrie, will this be a standalone article? Sorry.
Sorry. No, it's going to be in the one-year capital.
Okay,
Yep, because it's under 250,000, so it's in there. Yep.
very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Annual road maintenance, again, another $20,000 annual request. This is just to support our pothole patching, crack sealing, things in addition to Chapter 90. Chapter 90 we typically reserve for having paving contractors come out and do bigger projects. This just carries some of those other maintenance burdens for buying materials. We use a really good product called Aquafalt. It comes in a bucket. It comes in like a 5-gallon bucket, and it's like $55 a bucket. But you can use this material any time of year, and it's curated by water. So middle of winter, you can go out and take your bucket and put it in the pothole and tamp it down and pour a bottle of water over the top of it, and it cures. It's really, and it lasts a lot longer than, say, going to the asphalt plant and getting material in a hot box and trying to keep it hot and patching potholes. We don't like to use it for a lot of things, only in kind of emergency situations. But there are some really good products out there, some new and innovative things. So this money helps support some of that stuff.
Eric?
Just going back to the garbage truck, with the issues you had with breakdowns and things like that, what's your plan when you get the new one for this one? Is it something you keep on standby, or has some value on the trade-in?
We would auction it off, and then that money would go to the general fund. Whether there's a market for it or not, I don't know. But, that'll come at auction time.
Rob, is our paving season being extended? I mean, I was astounded to see the paving work taking place in December.
I was astounded as well.
Right. The asphalt plants are staying open, and it's worthwhile to try to do it then?
It all depends on the weather. But yeah, typically, some of them will start closing after Thanksgiving, but there'll always be at least one that stays open till around Christmas time. That contractor started in the first week of November. It should have been a project that was done in a couple of weeks, and it got It just got extended. We were paving in January still.
Yeah, right. Oh, well. Go ahead, Barbara.
Thanks, Andy. Rob, by general fund, does that mean free cash, or does that general fund stay in your department?
I believe it goes to the town-wide fund, not in my department, but I rely on Carrie for that answer.
Typically, there's an account that's set up for asset dispositions, so the funds would go in there, which is general fund money. So it would be above what we would, our estimated receipts, so then it would, yes, it would close out at the end of the year, if that's what you're asking. Yep. You're welcome.
There are times when we would try to keep that money within DPW and say, trade it into another, say if we had a Ford and we were gonna buy another Ford, and we would just trade it in and take that money off the top. But it seems like we get more money at auction from what I'm hearing from other DPWs. So that's the path I'd like to go. Even if that money doesn't come back into DPW's pocket, it still comes back to the town coffers. So I think it's just a better value.
Okay.
Another annual request, sidewalk construction, $100,000. This project on Corolla Road, it didn't include the sidewalk or the curb or the detectable warning surfaces. So that was something we added out of the sidewalk budget. I know I mentioned that an engineering technician, hopefully we're going to be hiring sometime this spring. That's one of the projects I would like to get them working on, is to look at the comprehensive sidewalk study that was done and really put together a larger, I think we've got some money in this account already carried over from previous years, get a larger maintenance project going where we have more detectable curbs for sidewalk crossings and repair some of the sidewalks that are falling into deterioration. This was sorry, a typo here. It should have been the 2000. Oh no, this is the 2015. I have another truck that I have the wrong year in. So it said 2005 originally, but it's a 2015 one-ton pickup truck. So it is 10 years old. It has 100,000 miles on it. We just like to have reliable equipment. Our equipment sees frequent breakdowns. It's out in all kinds of weather. It starts to corrode faster. This is just something we want to have available for the next snow and ice storm, so it has a reliable plow and hopper in the back for salting. Just part of our fleet upgrade. 10 years is a long time for a truck to be in service.
Barbara?
You probably use that for something else other than just snow and ice, right?
Yeah, it's used year-round, absolutely. These one-ton, they're like dump trucks, really, but they're small. They're our most versatile piece of equipment. We use them every single day. It's the dump trucks we don't necessarily use quite as often. This was the error. This is no, it's the next one, I'm sorry. 2005 John Deere backhoe, 20-year-old backhoe. We'd like to replace it. Again, it is a versatile piece of equipment. We use it to bury animals on the beach. It has a really long reach, close to 20 feet. We use it for drainage projects and a number of things. It's a pretty versatile piece of equipment. So again, as equipment gets older, it becomes more obsolete to get parts, and it just breaks down more frequently. So I think this one, it looks like it's in good shape. We've taken really good care of it, and I think we would be able to get a pretty high dollar amount at auction for it. This one that was not in anything that Carrie had mentioned previously, and this was actually a 2007 Chevy C8500. That's the error I had on here. It's a 5-ton dump truck. Again, not as versatile a piece of equipment, but critical for winter maintenance because it can carry more salt, and it can travel greater distances and still treat the roads without having to have return trips back to the garage. This truck is so old that we can't raise the bed anymore because for fear of the rails are so rusted out, we are fearful that the back will fall off if we raise the bed, so. Last couple of times it broke down, we had to have our mechanic fabricate parts, the exhaust system, and there was something else on the back that he had to fabricate the parts because we can't buy them anymore. So
Tracy,
it's,
you had something?
I was just wondering what the cost is for the replacement.
so that's a great question. So thank you for that. I think we will be able to absorb, I'll explain a little bit. This is a little tricky situation, and I just want to try to make sure I fully explain it. So last year, we had approval to buy a new roll-off truck for the transfer station. I don't know if you all remember that. It was $220,000. So with our new contract with Veolia at the sewer plant, we have a roll-off truck at the sewer plant. It's a town-owned roll-off truck. It's about 11 years old, but it has low mileage on it. How we typically treat our solid sludge waste, after it comes out, it gets dewatered in the belt filter press and stored there, we store it in a dumpster, and then our roll-off truck comes, picks up that dumpster, drives it to Yarmouth, dumps it in Yarmouth, stores it there until we have several loads that are brought there. Then we hire a trucking company to go pick it up in Yarmouth, drive it to Maine, where it goes to a Casella landfill. And so it's handled, once you flush, you think it's never seen again. We're handling it like 3 and 4 times again and driving it across straight lines. It's really inefficient, and it does cost a lot of money. So we have Veolia put us in touch with this new company. They're not new, but they're new to us. And we're working out some contract language where they would drop a dumpster there for us, 30-yard container, and we would just fill it. And when it's filled, they would take it. They would take it at a much lower cost, and they would blend it with other materials and sell it for, to commercial farmers for mulch and fertilizers and things like that. It keeps all the solid waste out of landfills, and it reuses all this material. And the projected savings is about $40,000 a year. So we'd be able to take that roll-off truck that's at the wastewater treatment plant, reuse that at the transfer station, and possibly purchase a new dump truck with the roll-off truck money. So that's kind of the wheeling and dealing I've been doing behind the scenes, and I just figured instead of trying to put a slide together, it's just easier to try to explain it.
Go ahead, Steve.
Rob, I think you're to be commended for that. Your deal-making skills, well done. A number of years ago, your predecessor switched the town from a salting campaign to a solution pretreatment regime. Are we still doing that? You've made several references to salts and salt spinners and the like.
So we do have a tank of mag chloride. Not all of our tanks are outfitted with, all of our trucks are outfitted with tanks for liquid storage.
Yep.
But I have instructed our foremen that, we need to really start using that material. It keeps salt on the road.
Right.
It reduces bounce and scatter, so half the materials will wind up in the ditch. There's more retainage. It sits in the cracks and crevices in the road, so it reactivates the next time it snows.
Yep.
There's so many great benefits to it. I wouldn't say I would support like a brine program, because that is more susceptible to freezing temperatures. But the mag chloride that we have is a very superior product, and I'm trying to get them to use it more.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, keep going.
Another annual request, road surfacing, $200,000. Again, this just supplements Chapter 90 fund. Typically for bigger projects, we hire contractors to come in. Last couple of years, we've gone to Barnstable County has road bid projects where they handle all the advertising and all the coordination with us. We just tell them what roads we want to pave, give them some terms and limits, quantities and things of that nature. And Barnstable County handles the bidding process for us. So it's been really good the last few years. This just helps supplement what we need, but we don't get from Chapter 90.
Tracy.
This is sort of a more general question, and you'd mentioned that there's so many things where there are these annual requests, and then it sounded like some of them have existing balances, from the years before that, whatever the 10,000 for the annual request for this. Is there a way that we could see what the existing balances are in some of these? And every year we get requests for this 10,000 or this, 100,000, to know where we stand with what's already in those accounts?
Yeah, I can certainly get you those balances for those accounts. That's fine. They're capital accounts, so what happens is the money gets put in, like you said, and then it doesn't close out because it's a capital item, so it stays in the account that it's in. So, and some of the requests are like, they're only requesting a certain amount to build up to a certain amount. So the request might be $500,000 that they request, but they're only requesting it over a certain amount of time. So they're, so it might be like they only get a certain amount, you know what I mean? Not the whole 500,000. So over the years, they'll get like maybe $100,000 to go in there for the project that they need to do. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but anyways, that's why they carry over a balance, just to hold it so they have the money that they need for the actual project amount. Right. Yeah.
Right, but if conceivably, there might be some years where we don't need to do the 10,000 annual request.
Correct. There were some requests that were put in and I didn't fund because we had enough money in there already, so, yeah.
Yeah, something like paving, for instance, we don't really know what the cost is until we get all the bids. I mean, we can project it and we estimate it, but we may say, hey, we're gonna do, 2 miles of this road 1 year, but we're gonna hold back that money and we're gonna do, 3 or 4 miles the following year. So there is a little bit of fluctuation sometimes.
So, Kerry, it's not unlike, for example, the Waterway Users Fund, Fee and Fund, where we're essentially banking money over time to address certain projects of interest to the town.
Right. So let's use the the catch basins, for example. So the catch basins every year we get a request for like $60,000. And over the years, we've only given like maybe $30,000. But when I noticed this year, there was still a balance in there for like, I think 60,000. I had asked Rob, do you really need $30,000 this year? And he said, no, we don't need that. It's just the line item, so it can roll over. Yep. And there are times, don't get me wrong, there are times where we close out capital lines when we don't need the funds anymore, and they do close out to free cash. So, or, they close out at the end of the year. Yep. So,
Okay, that's
yeah, but it's not like the waterway user fees where it's just held in there all the time.
Fair.
So if we have like the transfer roll-off truck, for example, if we didn't use it for anything else, we would potentially have to close that account out. Yeah.
Okay, understood, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Can I just do a quick follow-up? I apologize for being late, Rob. I was just curious, of the roughly 5% increase in your department line for the year, how much of that is reflected in kind of contractually obligated steps versus otherwise? I'm sorry if I missed that before.
So really, all the personnel increases, the 189,000 it's really just step increases, cost of living adjustments, collective bargaining.
So roughly three.
I think there
4.5.
is,
3% of the 5.
I was looking for the increase in parks and ground staff as well. And that would be 2 new positions.
Correct. Yep, understood. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
That's all I have. We jumped to the last slide, so I'm happy to stay for questions.
Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks. I have a question. Not to sound critical, I'm just questioning it because I wasn't aware of this. I noticed that the Cemetery Commission, that there's a stipend for those folks. And I'm wondering if that's something by statute or something that's lingered for years, because I was just surprised. I didn't know that. And I know in the old days, the commission folks would be the ones answering the phone at, as soon as somebody was looking for a plot, which might have been any time of the day or night. But now we've got staff. So anyway, I was just curious where the stipend, how that if you know the history of that, or
I
why it's
think
still
it's
there.
just one of those legacy things that have stayed around for a while.
Because we have a lot of volunteer boards that work very hard that don't get anything, so it's like $2,000 or, it's not a ton of money, but I was just curious about it.
We can look into that.
Tracy?
I guess, Rob, if you would maybe just explain a little bit more about the two new positions. I think sort of like what Eric was asking, like, I get that it sounds like two people, just to me, seems like a lot of new people to cover what didn't seem like two whole people's worth. Like, is it, if we paid a lot more an hour for to try and find summer staff, I understand it's hard to find the summer staff, but if it's like a really good hourly pay, would that still be cheaper than hiring another full-time employee?
Well, no, I mean, I think without benefits and, summer help, regardless, you'd have a lot of room to increase their salaries to make up the difference between somebody who's on a permanent staff member, by the time you add up health benefits and holiday pay and all that stuff. It's not like our Parks and Grounds staff is sitting at the garage right now twiddling their thumbs either. There are incredible amount of demands placed on them, and it seems like it increases every year. So like right now, there's part of the crews are out working in the cemeteries. Part of the crews are pulling benches from all of our parks, refurbishing those benches. They're pulling all the picnic tables off, refurbishing those for summer. They help the parks, the beaches staff. They put out all the mats and the lifeguard chairs in the spring. They assist with all like the holiday decorations. I mean, year round, they have constant demands placed on them. Plus they're plowing snow for us and salting the roads in the wintertime. I mean, there's no shortage of need, that's for sure.
That's great. That was exactly what I wanted to hear, that it wasn't really just to facilitate the cemeteries.
No, I mean, that's the busiest time of year because all the grass in every park, in every town office grows, and it needs to be cut at the same rate. So that's where we're really short-staffed.
Barbara?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rob, the fire department and the police department have an intern program working with Monomoy and also with Cape Tech. Does the tech school have any sort of landscaping program that they're training kids to do stuff like that at, that we might be able to get some help from?
I don't know. However, we have to worry about anybody under 18 years old using power equipment for the town. They may not be covered under our insurance. So
I
we
knew you
are
were gonna
working.
say that.
We're working with Veolia, like with Mass Maritime and Cape Cod Tech, to try to get people interested in water and sewer licensing. But we really have to have them at 18 years old or older. We have a college kid the last couple of years that has come and worked for us, and it's been a great addition.
Oh, good.
Oh, Tommy.
For Kristen, don't be ashamed to ask that question. That's what you're here for.
Sorry. Barbara, go ahead.
Just for Carrie, or maybe for Rob, the, like the snow and ice account and the other one, the $95,000 account, if we don't spend all of that, does that go to the general fund or to free cash?
The snow and ice is, that's part of the general fund. So if we don't use the money, if we don't need it for anything else to be transferred around within the general government either, then it will close out at the end of the year.
Okay.
The snow and ice is actually one of the only budgets that we're legally able to go into the deficit on, though. So I just wanted to mention that too. So if we go above, we can legally do that.
Yeah, and we can also lend you some money from our account too if we need to.
We can, but
Hey, Rob, please, go ahead.
No, that was it. I was on my last slide, and I just, as the discussion was going towards some of these other things, I was just bringing it up so everybody had the information in front of them.
All right.
Carrie, could you just refresh my memory on the second fund other than snow and ice that we can deficit spend through? I think there's two, aren't there?
say that again.
We've got snow and ice, which we can deficit spend. My recollection is there's a second.
I don't know. In the general fund, I know it's snow and ice.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go poke.
I know there's other things that we can go in the deficit on, but the one that pops in my head is snow and ice. I'll have to look and let you know. There's definitely other accounts, but
Yeah, I think
this is
I
the
just
main
remember Alex always saying that there were two accounts that we could deficit spend from,
one. Okay.
Overlay surplus.
possibly.
Um,
Okay.
no.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, now, we're bringing on Terry, is that right? There he is, on the small screen.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
Appreciate it. You and your team are doing a terrific job.
Can't hear you, Terry.
I apologize for that. So good afternoon. I'm going to, I'll run through a quick overview presentation, and then I have some slides on the capital requests. And again, obviously, just like we did with Rob, if you want to break in, feel free to do so. I'm going to share my screen here, and we'll run through the presentation real quickly. Okay, so again, my name is Terry Whalen, and I'm going to do the Projects and Operations Administration overview, and I'm the administrator of this division. The Projects and Operations Administration budget for this year, as Rob mentioned as well, it's carried under the broader DPW budget. The proposed FY26 division budget totals $313,228, and of that, $308,378 is allocated for salary and wages. There's also a line item for operating expenses of $4,850. And Rob also mentioned that the salary line is lower this year, and that was due to the retirement of a longtime town employee. So we've got a savings there of $9,652. And then the increase we have is of $850, which includes $100 for continuing education and $700 for other charges and expenses, dues and fees, and those types of things associated with rising costs over the past couple of years. So what again, the division primary support areas include capital and special projects. We're working on articles, grants, and other projects assigned by the town manager. We support committees. We provide liaison duties, compliance, and administrative functions. We provide the operational support to facilities as needed, and we also house the geographic information system, which is the electronic mapping. So some of the primary projects we've been working and continue to work on over the course of this year include the Center for Active Living. So and if you've been following the select board meetings, we've completed a study for the renovation expansion of 193 Stony Hill, and staff will be coming back on February 11th with a final proposal to put before the select board for, again, renovation expansion at 193 Stony Hill for a Center for Active Living. We're also been working on the American with Disabilities Act Transition Plan implementation. I'll go over that a little bit more because that's a recurring request for for a third year of funding. We continue to work with green communities on all kinds of energy conservation measures, projects, grants, where we're always looking to find any types of offsets, incentives, or opportunities to upgrade equipment while still getting funding offsets to make it more economic for the town. And we're also still working on Eldridge Public Library. We've got 2 capital projects going on over there, the Site Master Plan project and the HVAC project. And another project that we're working on that's with our role supporting the Airport Commission is citing the NOAA, which is the National Oceanographic, NOAA, National Oceanographic Administration. Basically, the Weather Service is part of that. So upper air inflation balloon UAIB station at the former Fisherman's Story storage area at the airport. So if you recollect, some years ago, that facility was decommissioned at the Monomoy Reserve. So we've been working with National Weather Service, and we're getting close to getting that in place. The committees, again, we basically support 3 committees, so we work very closely. Spent a lot of time working with the Airport Commission, Energy and Climate Action Committee, and the Railroad Museum Working Group, and basically supporting everything that goes along with running a public meeting under the open meeting law and any grants or administration or other items that come along with management and operation of a meeting, ranging from public records requests and correspondence and other processing of information requests.
Terry, Barbara has a question.
Thanks,
Sure.
Mr. Chair. Terry, could you give us just a thumbnail sketch on update for the Eldridge Public Library? It seems like we've been seeing that year after year. I just wonder how it's coming along.
Yeah, so we are, and yes, and you're right, it has been taking us some time to get, but we are moving along. We're getting in, hopefully we'll be into the final design phase, and I'm talking about the site master plan first, which is the upgrade for the, basically the access to the facility across both the front, the side, and the rear parking lot. And as Rob mentioned, Rob and I have been working on coordinating. When we originally envisioned the project, we had a different schedule for projects involving sidewalk work and also repaving of Library Lane. So those need to happen as well as part of the project. And we're working on coordinating that, getting the design final, and coordinating the repavement of Library Lane and the sidewalk construction, which was going to happen in other projects. So that's on that project. And with the HVAC project, we're awaiting final results for a thermal study that'll basically get us to the equipment that we'll be speccing to put out to bid for the electrification, which is the conversion of from gas-fueled, natural gas-fueled building to an electric building.
Thank you, Andy. The upper air inflation balloon project, is that costing the town money?
No, that's actually going to wind up. So the work that we're doing will result in revenue that will go into the airport revolving fund. So it'll be revenue generating in the sense that any development building of it will all be those costs will all be borne by the federal government.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Joanne?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you give us a date or a time when you think this library project will be complete?
We're hoping to get the bid package out in the spring, and then we can, hopefully we can target a fall construction season.
Is there a generator at the library?
There is not one, and to your question, but that will be part of the proposal for the electrification of the building.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Right. Barbara, please.
Terry, what are the savings going to be in utilities when we go from gas to electric at the library?
I would have to look. I don't have the report right in front of me, but we can look at those from the audit report. So I had provided that. Amy and I had that information. So it was all quantified, and quite frankly, even the new thermal study, when that's completed, we'll have even more revised information based on some additional work, really detailed work that has been completed since the first kind of high-level audit that's been completed.
So that HVAC system is probably going to take a little bit longer than the site plan. The site plan is part of your ADA goal too, right?
As well, yeah. It serves multiple purposes there, so there's lots of different things going on there too. And if you recollect, part of that is also relocating the Pioneer Memorial becomes relocated, and there's also some additional requests, some additional grading of the site to enhance the library's ability to have certain types of activities outside, when the weather's good. So So we've added a couple of other, not twists, but tweaks to the design to make even more functionality within the full site for everything from just access to the site to having, some outside activities.
So that'll check a lot of boxes for you when we get that done.
Yes.
Thanks, Terry.
Joanne,
You're welcome.
please.
Thank you. Do we expect for the project upon completion to live within what we've projected the cost to be?
Yes, and so so we've had, and similar to some of the discussion before that Carrie mentioned and Rob with capital. So with the phase 2, some of the shell project, there is some additional funding there to handle any types of contingencies or slight escalation from the delay in the project. And then we'll also include, which it would have before, funding from that normally would come out of roads and sidewalks.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Terry. Please proceed.
Okay. Hopefully everybody can see my screen again.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Yep. And just, so we just stopped at the mapping. So again, that was the last bullet slides were the primary areas that we're working on, but more specifically drilling down into the grants and agreements that we're working on that are, occurring on a regular basis. We're also working closely with the Green Communities Program from the state to also always looking for any kind of grant anytime we're doing anything related to sustainable energy, working with Cape Light Compact as well on coming up for our next round. So coming up in, there's a grant round coming up in April where we're looking at developing a program and approach to further implement electrification of multiple buildings, quite frankly, all the buildings as we move along. So we're worked on prioritizing 3 right now that have the highest return from the perspective of savings and then also grant offset. So more to come on that, and hopefully we'll get that grant approved in April, May. And with the Cape and Vineyard Electric Collaborative, so slightly different than Cape Light Compact, but on the power generation side or sustainable energy. So again, we continue to participate with Cape and Vineyard Electric Collaborative to install power generating locations such as the former transfer station, the PD annex, the fire station. We've got community centers close to coming online and other projects and opportunities as they come up. And obviously with working closely with FAA and Mascot Aeronautics on the airport, always looking to optimize our obtaining grants, as those tend to be very positive as the feds and the state pick up 95%, and the local share coming from the airport revolving fund is 5%. So that really helps in getting the larger projects completed, the ones that are identified in the airport master plan. So these, I'll probably need to, if you want to stop on each one, let me know, but this is just the overview. I'm going to go through these six projects here. The first one being a recurring capital article, which is the property maintenance and building maintenance, which is at $200,000. This again is an annual request for funding the larger cost repair and replacement of equipment. So these are things to help us maintain, obviously, the buildings and facilities. And then this really is intended for unplanned repairs, improvements, need much greater order of magnitude than typical building maintenance. So these might also be things that come up over the course of a year that are unanticipated. So much larger types of outside the normal operating budget line items in 192.
Terry, would that also include any proposed maintenance work at the elementary school building?
No, we don't have any. None of the work, none of that funding is for. It's all for. I guess I'll say every town hall building or facility, with the exception of the schools.
Just to me, I thought part of our deal was that we took over the expense of the elementary school from the regional district. Is that not correct? Yeah. So I just, if my conclusion is correct, then we need to start thinking about what's required over there for capital projects.
Yes, no, if that is the case, and again, I'm not aware that that's the case, but yeah, that would definitely be, most likely would need to be increased, as again, that's not carried in there, for the past years. We haven't, we've had that pretty level, I think, for the past 4 years, 3 or 4 years at 200,000. But again, that has not included schools in that time frame.
Okay, well, I will admit my ignorance. I'm not sure whether or not we need to think of that. But by assuming the expense of the elementary school, I would guess we have to do some work on it.
Night would seem to follow day. Night would seem to follow day.
It would seem that, yeah, right.
Well,
Barbara?
we at least would have to cover part of it. I mean, our percentage of it.
At the
worst
very
case.
least, yes.
Yeah.
Right, but that would be through the regional district contract if it still covers it. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway.
Yeah, do you want us, we can check into that and get back to you on that with,
Okay, all right, well, I'm
reviewing
foundering
that,
in my
aspect.
ignorance, so maybe we should just move beyond that and say, try to answer the question. Go ahead, Terry.
Okay, so back to, so this is let's call it a program, really. So again, back in 2022, the select board endorsed implementing action items that were identified in the ADA transition plan, which was conducted for all town buildings and facilities. And we're into this year's request is the third year request. Actually, here you just see here's the cover page for the report and a sample of hundreds of action items that have been identified, which serve as the basis for our programming of upcoming projects. So this was anticipated to be over 5 years at $250,000 a year. This is the third year, and we are really just in supporting the select board's overall objective of accessibility and adequacy of all town physical facilities for all. And this is also important for the town to maintain compliance with ADA requirements, enhance the access for use of all mobility levels to town facilities. And a big part of that, and you might have seen in the paper or the main sheet, we've got our first major project underway under this project for rebuilding the town restrooms on the back, public restrooms on the back of Town Hall. So the projects are basically broken into two areas of those that are readily achievable. So a lot of them are management, real low-cost items, things that Rob and his crew of facilities have been chipping away with, and then also more significant projects. And then we'll also be achieving other projects through, like we mentioned before, over at both the library and the Center for Active Living, if that gets funded.
Terry, Barbara.
There's another.
Terry, Barbara
is there a
has a question.
So out of the hundreds of buildings that we have to bring into ADA compliance, how many do you think this 250,000 will cover?
So our goal is over the course of the 5-year program is that we'll get every action item that was identified in the report. So we're basically implementing the action plan to its fullest extent. So we would achieve at the end of the 5-year period, we'd have all the accessibility items identified would be complete in that time frame.
So we don't know how many for this year?
As far as I could get you we have, are you talking about the specific action items, or because we're chipping away the charts, so we're attacking action items by their complexity, and not necessarily building by building. So some of them we're grouping together. We're not doing it building by building, if that helps.
It just seems to me that I read somewhere there was like 390 things that we needed to address, so I just wondered how many of those we were going to get to mark off this year with our $250,000.
Sure. Well, an easy example without having the numbers right in front of me would be, so there's a lot of signage action items in there. So there are 102 signage action items. Those are close to being, once we get the signs up and installed, that would, be a pretty significant chunk on the gross action item number. So, but some of them are much more complex than others. So the projects requiring design are much more complicated. They do require, architect and bidding for construction and those types of things. So I can get those stats. We have those and we're going to be generating a quarterly report, but I just don't have those numbers right in front of me but I can send along the spreadsheets if you like.
Okay, I mean, I don't want to belabor the point, but I just do think it's a good idea, especially when you have that many things to do, if you have certain specific goals set out that you were planning to complete in a period of time.
All right. Okay, Terry, proceed.
So this project here is for the Bassett House. So this is kind of serves dual purposes. So not only energy conservation, but also dealing with basically the power plant or the climate control in the building is been in there for quite some time and in need of upgrade to just improve the conditions over at the Bassett House. So we worked again with Cape Light Compact and RISE to come up with an approach to basically do this again, electrification of the building by switching over to heat pump systems for both climate control and hot water, and also deal with weatherization. So this $32,650 is a contribution for about a $68,000 total project. So again, working with the incentives, it saves the town money doing it on its own. And obviously there's the improved efficiencies of both operational savings, and also, again, the savings here on the hard equipment by using the incentive programs.
Okay.
Yeah, and here's more specifically, this request also then includes using some funding from the Bassett House revolving fund as well to make this work. This is a new item that we've been talking about. For those of you familiar with the DPW facility, came online around 2007, substantial completion. And as we've been growing and changing, we're really looking at a request here to fund a study to review different options for restoring a first floor conference room, increasing administrative storage, and building out unfinished space for some flexible programming and compliant archive storage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of pictures, and this ultimately would provide a background for potential future comprehensive or phased capital requests. So I don't know how many people have been up and I'll start with the second floor here, with the second story on the administration portion on 221 Crowell Road. This was not finished in the 2007 project, but we did build this out during the temporary relocation during the PD Annex project. So there were 4 offices were added and a small conference room. Since that time, as we've been adding staff, so that original outfitting or build out of the upstairs was funded by the Annex project. So it was a residual value from that effort. And as staff has grown over people that are assigned to DPW, we're basically at capacity with those offices. And we also have a sign machine located up on the second floor. In the area, so this study would really look at also reclaiming or better formalizing existing space that is between the admin building, and if you're familiar again with the big green metal building kind of connected to it, there is this area of space on a second level that we really need to create formalized storage. If you look over on the left here, and building that out, and over to the right on this building also, there's some additional ability to potentially build some other programming space. With the, as we were talking about Cemetery Commission before as well, that expansion of that office has resulted in a need to decommission the first floor level conference room. So we're looking to restore a first floor level conference room. And again, you can see that where this, if you were ever in a public meeting there some time ago, we basically have partitioned the room for needed file storage and for the administration of the cemetery. So I don't know if you wanted me to stop there, or if that one engenders any questions or not, or
I think at this point, probably, if we have any questions, we should dive into that. We do have a handout that includes the photographs of the fire suppression upgrade.
Yep.
All those other things. So, depending on what we feel compelled to ask.
Mr. Acting Chairman.
Stephen.
I'd like to take a moment and revisit, if we could, please. I see that our town manager is on the screen. I'm not sure if she's actually present, but I see she's on the screen. To understand a little bit better about the point you raised, which I think is a quite thoughtful one, around the property management maintenance projects and our, as I understand it, now undertake an obligation to maintain the elementary school. Creepy.
I'm here if you're looking for me.
Hi, Jill.
Hi.
We're having a strange echo, sorry.
Let me try turning down my volume.
Might work.
How's that?
Let me try. Better. All right, we got it, thank you. So I guess the first question is, do we, under the new undertaking of 2 years ago, have responsibility for the maintenance of that structure, either directly or indirectly through the district?
So I believe it's indirectly that our team would not be going on site to do any of the maintenance or doing any of the bidding for the maintenance. It's still under the control of the regional school district. We, however, are paying our share for the students that attend CES, as well as adding the capital projects to our plan for CES.
And our share being 100%?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry, our share being 100% notionally?
It is. I have to look back at the regional agreement because we share our capital costs with the district for the middle school, as you know.
Right.
And actually, we've been in discussions. Carrie might be able to attest to it. We're still working through the nuances, but at this time, Carrie does have capital requests for CES, and it's just a question if we're going to fund it through our capital plan, which I'm not sure we are, or have it as part of the Chatham assessment under that separate article for both the operating and capital budget.
Okay, and I understand that. Is there any sense, Carrie or Jill, of the prospective quantum of the pending repairs that the building committee working group is trying to assess, or is it too early for that?
For the middle school, they do have a building committee, and I know that the building committee has been meeting, and they have another meeting scheduled for February 11th. At that same time, the school district will be coming to the select board to present the operating and capital budgets.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Carrie, if I
I was
cut you off.
conflating the elementary school with the middle school.
Fine.
So, okay, that's helpful. Thank you, Joe.
Okay. Other questions? All right. I do have have I concluded correctly that we're going to get deeply into the sewer department capital projects in a couple of weeks, February 18th?
Yes, that's
Rob
correct.
has an opportunity to study up on the 18 questions we asked. All right.
I'm not sure Terry was done with his list of projects, were you?
I thought Terry was. No?
I don't think so.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I think there's just one or two more. So yeah, I apologize. I didn't know if people wanted to talk about the proposed study or not. So I stopped. I apologize for that. Do you want me to just finish the last slides?
Please, go ahead, Terry. Thank you,
Okay.
Eric. I missed that.
Yeah, so we also have a request in this year as well for the DPW fuel depot to replace the fire suppression system. So that's in need of, quite frankly, upgrade / replacement. So we have a request in for $150,000 for that. And this is really, you know, the items are at the end of their life cycle. And, you know, you really need to maintain a functioning fire suppression system for public safety and compliance with fire insurance and safety standards. And then the last item here is another project that we had funded in a previous year to basically replace boilers that were part of the original PD Annex project with a slightly different type of system that adds redundancy to the building. So on the left is what we've installed over at the fire station, excuse me, at the, well, we do have similar equipment at the fire station, but at the PD, and we're looking to do that at the annex as well. As the photo on the right doesn't, you know, if that goes out, we don't have redundancy. And also that equipment is becoming harder and harder to get replacement parts for. So this is kind of the second phase of that project that we had done some years ago over at the PD.
Okay. Terry, I think Eric has some questions.
Terry,
Sure.
so those boilers, so doesn't feel like these buildings are that old. Is it the original spec on those wasn't great? Is that what I'm taking from this?
Yeah, the equipment, I think a fair characterization of the original, the equipment, and not so much the specifications, I don't think, but the actual equipment, you know, when I think, well, you might remember as we were on the committee at the time working with that, you know, the company was really going to be making great inroads in the States, and they really didn't. They never really did. And we do have problems, especially with some of the electronics and when certain components go. So, you know, that's been the challenge with that. And, you know, going to the double boiler system with equipment that's more, let's quite frankly say, American made and sourced, we have better luck on getting than from the European company that was used in the original outfitting of the building.
Eric, do you have something further on that?
Nothing positive, so, but that's great.
Okay. Do you have something you said, Chris? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Stephen?
Terry, I think I saw a presentation to the select board in December around the salt shed, and I was wondering if, for the benefit of the committee and our viewership, if we could just get an update on that project, which was on the radar, I think, a little more fervently 2 or 3 years ago. Please.
And I'm sorry, you're looking for me or for Rob to comment on that? Because Rob's kind of,
Let's call it a jump ball.
okay. I might defer to Rob if he's still in the
Yeah,
still here.
I'm still here. So, yeah, we decided that, you know, we could let that salt shed sit for a couple more years. It's not, you know, it's not in danger of falling down. There are some roofing issues that we need to address. We could likely do those in-house. But we can string it along a little bit longer.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Good. Other questions for either Rob or Terry? No? Okay, all right. Sounds pretty good. Carrie, you got anything you want to wind up with? Or?
No, I did put an updated tentative schedule. I updated a few of the dates for you and added a couple of capitals for like February 18th. We'll be reviewing CPA and the sewer and the transfer station articles. And then on the 20th will be the Center for Active Living. Just a few updates on the schedule. The other item, I did put in the back the Chapter 90 balances that were asked at the last one of the last meetings. I don't really have anything else, unless you guys have any other
Right.
questions.
Stephen?
So I would like to thank Andy for grabbing the helm while I've been in the barrel, and make an exhortation for topics for our report. As is my habit, sort of jot things down that may or may not necessarily rise to the importance of a conveyance to the select board. But just for the sake of what I've got so far is, I remember last year, we had a conversation with the town manager about receipt of, I think, ultimately quarterly project updates. So I'd like to think we should follow up on that. I know water/irrigation/pricing, to the extent that we have two well sites that may not necessarily provide ample gallonage, and the trend lines for consumption in this town seem to be pretty up and to the right. I think it's something that, as we've repeatedly said over the past years, needs to be really focused on, and whether that ultimately comes down to some draconian pricing increases. We're clearly not pricing water to the extent you drive around this town in the summertime, and as Rob noted, the stuff's just pouring down the streets from every other parcel. It's almost obscene. I've got just the overall notion of the increased staffing, the 5 new members, headcount. I think, we've heard arguments for several of them. And then I think Andy's point about the project administration budget being static for some number of years, while certainly costs have increased over that time, and whether the envelope for our responsibility has increased is something that we should think about and perhaps talk about as well. So that's kind of what, again, I'm just throwing these things down as I hear them. And again, to the extent that anybody has something that's risen to their attention, I'd welcome getting it. I've got to go through this for another 2 weeks, and the time is going to be short between when I get out of the woods and when we need to deliver this report. So I'm really going to need some support. Please.
And the report's due on February 18th.
February 18th.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So, and we will have just barely finished this, looking at the sewer capital item, transfer station, CPA articles.
Yeah.
Time is
And it's fair, look, a fair comment is, this all looks great. But I'd like to think we will have something to say about some things.
right.
So,
I was thinking the other day that it would be interesting to look at the operational budgets and then overlay on them deflator, right, for whatever, last 5 years, right, and see what kind of increases we're having. 'Cause you
real
may-
increases.
Yeah, I mean, just the on the face of it, a 5-point-something% increase seems like a fair amount. Right? And, is it in line with what our economy has been experiencing for price increases? I mean, some of that's driven by collective bargaining agreements, and I understand that.
Sure.
But there's another chunk of it that is not subject to that. But it again, as I'll paraphrase Tom, the juice may not be worth the squeeze, right, to try to figure that out. But it's just,
Something we can think about.
yeah, my curiosity about how are we going too far, right, too fast. But that was it for me so far.
Kristen, did you have something you want to say?
I just had a question about when we would be hearing the chamber. It seems to be a reoccurring topic for us, so if it needs to be included in the our report to the select board
It's a good point. Thank you.
Let me take a look. I know they are scheduled, and I think it's next week on
Sixth.
the 6th, I believe.
Right, next Thursday, a week from today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Carrie, just historically and for context, I think you and I talked about this last year, the chamber was notoriously non-transparent with their finances.
She has a bunch of stuff that she shared, so.
Yeah, I understand Angela's now at the helm, and I think that's terrific. I understand we didn't get it last year, but I understand she was very forthcoming with the select board on financial matters.
Yep.
So I just want to kind of iterate or reiterate this committee's interest in that kind of full disclosure. I think we were on the cusp of not voting them or voting against their budget emphatically because of the lack of transparency. So if there's, if there's kind of a new course of action, I think that would be applauded by this committee.
Go ahead, Joanne.
I'm just going to ask you, Mr. Vice Chair, our temporary chair. You made a statement that was interesting. We've gone too far, too fast. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, maybe mine's just an intellectual exercise, but, if the economy has been experiencing generalized inflation of certain rates over the last, say, 5 years, how much of that is being reflected in our operating budgets? Right?
Yes. I
Aside
think that's
from-
important, too.
Aside from collective bargaining agreements, right?
Yes.
Now, there may also be some specific projects that we've truly chosen to say, yeah, we want that, right? Even if it does blow the budget somewhat, but we need to have something done, whether it's the PFAS filter on Training Field Road, right? Or exploring new wells, or a new bell filter press. Right? I mean, some of those things are highly important to the infrastructure, of the town.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I understand what you said now.
Okay.
And I agree with the importance of taking a look at that.
Yeah, but also it's, how do we disaggregate the pieces in the budget that's being presented that are, say, operational as opposed to capital or collective bargaining agreements, and then impose a 5-year deflation factor to just try to figure out a constant dollar budget, basically.
Yes.
Right.
Are we paying attention to the real inflation factor versus what we think we need to have?
But,
Thank you, Mr. Chair, yeah.
okay, yeah, that's the problem with me.
Just a quick question for Rob. Looking at the photographs that when the selectmen's package last week about the new iron and manganese facility, obviously significant progress is being made. I would be interested in when you think it might be appropriate for site conditions for this committee to go have a site visit, take a little field trip. So if that's the spring, the fall, the summer.
I would say once the vessels get installed in the building, which should be March, the roof will be going on shortly thereafter. I think is probably a time, maybe April or even early May, that would be appropriate.
Okay, I'll reach out to you sometime in May and see if we can sort something out.
Sure,
If that works.
We were also going to visit the new bell filter press at one point, weren't we?
We can do that. We can do that.
So the belt filter press has been awarded to Robert B. Auer. It's a long lead item. It's custom fabricated. So we've already had a kickoff meeting, but it likely won't really see on-site construction until the fall.
Okay, all right.
Mark your calendar, Andy.
That's it. Barbara?
I was wondering, I meant to ask Terry and I forgot to, about the Kroll Road intersection problem. That it looks like they're moving towards having yet another review on it. I mean, are we certain that we're going forward with that, even despite the fact that the Finance Committee has year after year said we're 100% against it? And do we have to spend any money doing that?
Anybody?
Yes, if you want me to answer that, so I can try, and maybe Rob can fill in if I miss something. But the project is still in the MassDOT design queue and moving towards the 25% design hearing. So with the changes in directives and different things going on at MassDOT, they are requiring some additional information that is part of what's already encumbered for our design costs that we have right now. So, but if the project goes forward, then all the design costs, the construction costs are borne by MassDOT.
How much have we spent so far in designing this? And we've spent a considerable amount of money so far, haven't we?
We have, I'd have to check the last, because we're in about phase 2 of the contract. I could get to that information. I don't have it handy where we are on that contract. But to keep the project in the queue, the town had to commit through design services up to the 100% designed package.
So does that mean
It's
we've?
possible that they could pick it up in the interim, but right now that's what they require to have your project in consideration to keep it on the tip.
And we've decided 100% that we want to keep it
Well,
in the queue?
the next public milestone will be the 25% design hearing. So that's what we're getting close to having that hearing with MassDOT continuing. So if you've been reading the reports that I have for Projects Operations Administration, it seems like every month we've had a slightly different additional analysis thrown at us. But once those are completed satisfactorily, it then goes to a 25% design hearing. So that's the next public milestone on the how the project will proceed.
Okay, so when you get us the number that we've already spent,
Sure.
could you then get us what we're
Yep.
expected to spend if this goes through? I mean, if we get to that point,
Yep.
to 25%?
Correct.
Thank you,
And I
Terry.
give you the money that it leverages. as
Stephen,
well.
you had your,
Not to be cynical, but my recollection is when this vote was taken to advance it to the 25% design phase by the select board, almost, I think a majority of members of the select board were against the project, but nevertheless voted to advance it, which is disappointing to me personally as a resident of the town of Chatham. Terry, has there been any advance, given that a big part of this issue apparently down there is the traffic, is the sequencing of lights for the fire department? Has any advance been made? Has anybody done anything with MassDOT about a traffic, not exemption, the traffic light management system that all our fire trucks are equipped with, but the only thing is that the lights are equipped with a controller? Have we looked into that at all, if that's a core problem here?
Well, it's one of the key benefits, but basically the entire signal system there needs to be replaced in order to accommodate that system.
Wouldn't that be better than tearing up the gateway to the town of Chatham?
Well, again, if they do construction, they do need to do all the upgrades.
Right, well, that's my
according to
point,
MassDOT.
right? That's my point. Do we want to be chopping down trees in the church? Do we want to be chopping down trees on the other side? Do we want bike lanes? Do we want turning lanes? Do we want it to look like Main Street or lanes?
Mr. Chair?
that's a rhetorical question, I assume. Please,
Yes,
Jill, go ahead.
I would, yes,
Yes.
I just want to note that Terry provides, as well as the other departments, provides their updates on the capital projects in the monthly reports. And that if FinCom wants to have a detailed discussion of the Kroll Road intersection project, a lot has changed since the 10 years ago when it was first proposed. I would suggest that you would schedule this as an agenda item, but right now we're waiting for MassDOT to get back to us
Okay.
so that they can have the required 25% hearing, at which point any member of the public can speak for or against it based on the presentation of the new design. So if you don't mind me
Fair
stepping
point,
in here.
and I'm certainly happy to go in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Joanne?
Mr. Chair, when we get to the 25% design, you're usually going to have a project, and I'm upset, I don't know for how many people, that no matter how we've objected to this, apparently we haven't made our objections strong enough or to put any brakes on this project at all. We don't want it. A lot of people in Chatham don't want it, but we get caught in these situations where we get to a certain point, like the 25% design, and we're gone. It's out of our hands, and mass transportation is going to do exactly what they want to do with it. And the trees or whatever else, it's very little we can do to go beyond what their design is to meet our desires. And that's worrying to me. All of a sudden, we're at 25% design.
I think your
And
worry
Mr.
is
Chair,
shared.
if I could add one more thing.
ahead, Jill.
That might alleviate some of the concern. The select board will have to vote after the 25% hearing whether they want to proceed or not. So definitely there is a hard stop to the project should the community voice its concerns and the select board decides to vote against it. So again, that will be hopefully coming to us within maybe the next 6 months or so. We were hoping to get MassDOT to do the hearing almost 2 years ago, but their design guidelines have changed, and there's just been a lot of back and forth, especially with some of the newer positions there. So we definitely hear FinCom as well as other members of the public, so there will be ample opportunity for you to comment and for the select board to make the decision whether to proceed or not.
Thank you, Jill. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Everybody asked all their questions. Rob, please.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add that the Krill Road project does have the support of the Joint Transportation Committee and the MPO, and it is on the tip for 2029 currently.
What's the MPO, please, Rob?
The Metropolitan Planning Organization.
Sounds like an appropriate venue for our community's little project.
It's a Cape Cod wide.
I think that's exactly our
Barnstable
concern.
County.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. All right, thank you. I think it looks like we're pretty much done. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Tommy, thank you. A second?
Second.
All right, good. Roll call. Tommy, let's get him before he goes. Eric? Yes. Good. Tommy Doan?
Yes.
Barb Madison?
Yes.
John Papalardo's not here. John Sprague?
Yes.
Andy Young, I'm here. Kristen?
Yes.
Tracy Shields?
Yes.
Okay, and Stephen Daniel.
Yes, thank you.
We are now standing adjourned. Thank you.
How about that?
Mm.